You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.
Oh, wait. Wrong music. The circus starts now. Boxing.
Did we watch boxing today?
Maybe. Who knows?
I would say we watched 2 boxing matches. And then a couple of men were inside of a boxing ring and did some stuff. And then said stuff. And that is how I would describe what the last 2 fights were. In my humble opinion. Of all the fights that happened in 2020, those were 2 of them. I am, of course, José Youngs, here for MMAfighting.com, hosting the live post-fight show for the Triller Fight Club. Evander Holyfield, Vitor Belfort, and Tito Ortiz versus Anderson Silva. Those 2 fights happened. We're probably only going to stick with the main and co-main, even though the actual boxing matches earlier on the night were very entertaining. Who knew David Haye was fighting today? Not me. I would have been much more hyped for that fight until I saw him answering some questions mere seconds before making the walk, but that is neither here nor there. Joining us this post show. I know we did a kind of a mini brief post show right before the press conference, if you want to call it a press conference. There were some people up on stage. They said some things. They took no questions from the media. So whether you want to call that a press conference or not is on you. But joining us again for this post-fight show, Steven Marrocco. How are you, sir?
I'm exhausted and growing more exhausted by the minute. So
yep, I'm right there. I'm right there with you. And producer extraordinaire Casey Leydon on the 1s and 2s. He's going to be collecting your comments on this quote unquote fights that we saw as he does a little jig. You can't see her, but Esther Lynn is actually playing this music live.
She had the horns. She was like, yeah, it's crazy. She just learned not one lesson. It was amazing.
Fezzik and Rubella are on,
drums, yeah,
on the drums and the hi-hat and everything. But Steven, we'll start with you. I know we spoke on it a little bit before the press conference went live. Our own Mike Heck was, of course, on the scene. But after watching the fights that just happened, we'll start with the co-main event. Anderson Silva knocked out Tito Ortiz, and I believe 81 seconds was the official time. He didn't really say much at the press conference, so we can't really dissect that. But has your thoughts changed at all over the last 45 minutes, I want to say, since our post show about Anderson Silva knocking out Tito Ortiz?
No, I think Tito was in over his head. I think that he came into this fight with all of the circumstances kind of not working in his favor. Happened to fight a guy who's gotten better, gotten sharper with his hands since he started working on them exclusively, in Anderson Silva, who's just one of the best that we've had and that we've produced. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I have anything new to say other than I think that Tito was, the best Tito could have hoped for. And I actually did think of this when I first saw. Did anybody see him kind of grabbing the collar tie a little bit with one of his boxing gloves?
I did not.
I kind of half expected him to start doing the dirty boxing at one point. I could have swore he had that physical impulse. The best thing that he was going to do was use his size, muscle Anderson around, tie up, and basically try to work from in the inside and tire Anderson out. Get him into a dirty fight. Make it not pretty, not allow Anderson to have space and distance, and so he can set up his combinations. And when he did that, he just got lit up. I mean, just Anderson playing his game of peekaboo that he does. He bobs, he ducks, he weaves, all the head movement is there, and then he has that split second where he gets that opening. He is one of the most deadly strikers that combat sports has produced. And I think that this was a mismatch, but here we are in 2021.
A mismatch, especially given the fact that Anderson Silva had the contract against Tito Ortiz was for 195 pounds. Tito Ortiz said, I don't think he's made 195 pounds in high school. He weighed in at 200 pounds, looked like death on the scale, and they gave Anderson Silva a bunch of money as a fine. So Anderson Silva was the big winner of the weekend, I would say. Looks spectacular. Our own Sean El Shadi has said this a few times, and I'm going to echo it because he's not here. Anderson Silva's late career in the UFC was very much a bummer. He got matched up with a lot of killers. Israel Adesanya, current champion, who was like this generation's Anderson Silva. Jared Cannonier, who was just one of the hardest hitting monsters at middleweight. Former heavyweight that dropped all the way down to 185 and is probably within one win away from fighting for the title. And then Uriah Hall, who has said his entire life grew up watching Anderson Silva and molded his game off it. And he has looked better than ever. I know he had that speed bump against Sean Strickland, but Uriah Hall has never looked better. So all of those wins, and even the Cannonier loss was even more depressing given the fact that it was such a bad injury. That I don't remember if it was the same leg or not, but we've seen Anderson injured a few times inside the octagon. So the fact that we're getting these back-to-back vintage Anderson Silva performances against Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. and Tito Ortiz just warms the heart of fight fans. And Casey, what if I told you back in 2000, I think it was 12, maybe 2013, when Anderson Silva knocked out Stephan Bonner, that he would not get another stoppage win until boxing Tito Ortiz in 2021?
You know what? That kind of makes total sense. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you actually lay it out like that, yeah, MMA, it does make sense. But take in mind too, when Anderson Silva left the UFC, I still believe he's at worst a top 20 middleweight. The guy,
100%.
He's not top 15. You know, remember it was a competitive fight with Uriah Hall until he lost, but up until that point, it was a good fight. The Cannonier fight, Cannonier is the top 5 middleweight. Anderson Silva's not there anymore. He's 40-something years old, so that makes sense. But good job, Anderson Silva. Good job just outsmarting Tito Ortiz. Outsmarting Tito Ortiz, I'll just let that go.
Are your personal feelings involved in this? Are your personal feelings?
I'm talking about Tito Ortiz, MMA fighter. The MMA fighter. Tito Ortiz, by making this fight 195 pounds, almost knowing that Tito Ortiz would never make that weight, knowing he's going to come out way over, he'll attempt to make that weight. So not only will you get a big chunk of change, Tito Ortiz is going to be severely dehydrated. He's going to spend most of his training camp not working at boxing, but he's just going to be running, cutting weight, just getting sweaty and making IG videos about how he will make weight. So Anderson Silva, he's a GOAT. He proved it again tonight. Is he, a world champion boxer? No. But I'm happy he's picking his fights wisely, unlike some of the other competitors. But he's picking his fights wisely, and he's performing. And it's a pleasure to see a happy Anderson Silva. Even though we didn't really talk about this, once he did knock out Tito. Was it me, or did Anderson almost look kind of bummed that it was so easy? He didn't do any cool thing. He was just like, oh, that's it. So I actually felt a little bad for Anderson. I think Anderson was actually kind of hoping for we see Anderson smile. He's a big, smiley, fun guy, but hey, the guy's still a fighter. He needs to get down and dirty. He wants to get in there. I was just looking at old pictures when he fought Chael, in the first fight, and after he won, he was just like, he had this angry, mad, like ferocious face, and I was like, Anderson tonight was like, man, not even like break a sweat. That's not fun. So we're gonna definitely see Anderson back, and high profile matches, and hopefully big money fights. The man deserves to get some big checks.
If I had to hazard a guess as to why maybe Anderson didn't react in the way that he had reacted in previous victories, I think a lot of people, like I was looking through Twitter a lot when I was doing the Twitter reacts, a lot of people were just predicting Anderson to just wash Tito as it was. So maybe Anderson knew it was going to be that easy too. So when he won, he's like, yeah, the sky is blue, water is wet. I knock out Tito Ortiz in round 1. Maybe that's just a hazarding a guess. I did not see one person picking Tito Ortiz to win this fight, especially given that Anderson Silva beat Julio Cesar Chavez Jr., who I am I am not a fan of Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. as an individual or boxer, but he has a legitimate resume in the boxing world. And Anderson did what he did in the UFC to a professional boxer in his home country that I thought he was going to have the hometown cooking. But I think a lot of people picked Anderson to win. So, but from here, the question is, who does Anderson Silva fight next? A lot of people online, I believe Clarissa Shields, Michael Chiesa, Ben Askren. They are all calling for Anderson Silva versus Jake Paul. I know Sean Al-Shadi said maybe Logan Paul because he's a little bigger. The post-fight press conference, he was presented with maybe boxing Oscar De La Hoya. Anderson said, I think Vitor has some unfinished business with Oscar, and he just wants to go home and spend time with his family. Gave the answer that we as journalists hate. I just want to spend time with my family, and then I'll get back to the drawing board. And gave us absolutely nothing. Started every sentence with the word wow, so that didn't change from his UFC days. So, Steven, I'll start with you. If you are Anderson's team and you could tell him to fight anyone, that makes sense, who should he fight?
Well, yeah. I mean, if I'm in his team, I'm saying Jake Paul. I mean, that's the biggest payday, you know? I mean, like, even after this fight, like what somebody said on Twitter, like, we're still talking about Jake Paul. Jake Paul is still the main narrative coming out of this fight. Who's Jake Paul going to fight? You know, he's the guy who wins in the end again. So if I'm his team, I want to see him make the most money possible. And I think that's you know, the reasons Casey said notwithstanding, I mean, I feel like it's a great fight for him. And I actually think it's a fight that he can win and should win. But, you know, what I think it could be Logan or Jake, honestly. So there's the competitive side of it. Then there's a financial side of it. And from Anderson Silva's side, I would much rather be Anderson Silva than Jake Paul. If I'm Anderson Silva, I want that fight. If I'm Jake Paul, I'm thinking twice, because is Anderson going to bring the eyeballs? Is he going to make it a scene and a spectacle? So I agree with what Casey said before. I don't think it's, you know, completely like a nobody, or it's not going to do any business at all. Anderson was a top pay-per-view draw during his heyday. Of course, it's well past his heyday now. But that being said, the guy's had some great performances and has opened a lot of eyes. So me personally, I would love to see him fight Jake or Logan Paul for the competitive reasons. Do I think that happens? You know, I'm less confident about that.
Sure. I don't know if I'm Anderson. Obviously, the big money fight is Jake Paul. Jake Paul's probably going to fight Tommy Fury, who is probably the worst boxer of everyone we brought up, including both Paul brothers. Casey, if you're Anderson's team, which direction are you nudging him towards? I know he probably won't get. I know Jake Paul probably won't accept the fight. So taking the Paul brothers out of the equation, is there another option that is actually reasonable for Anderson Silva to fight next?
Man, the fight I wanted to see tonight, Anderson Silva versus Vitor Belfort. Mm-hmm. That's the fight I actually wanted to see. That's the fight that actually made more sense. That's the fight that was probably going to be more competitive. I would have still gone with Anderson, but I think it would have been a more competitive fight. I think from a monetary standpoint, prize fighting standpoint, of course, Jake Paul is the guy the fight to make for Anderson. But I just find it so weird that if we would have gone back in time a year ago, or say the Askren fight when Paul fought Askren, like, it would almost be insulting to Anderson Silva's legacy to suggest that he should fight Jake Paul. But now we're like, oh, Jake Paul, will you fight me? It's just crazy how this works in combat sports. You know, now all these, like, Vitor Belfort, these legends, these pioneers of mixed martial arts are basically like, hey, Mr. Paul, will you fight me so I can make lots of money? I just find it's just crazy. I hated it. I hated everything about Vitor Belfort's press conference and comments inside the ring. Like, he's offering $30 million, like, winner takes all to Jake Paul. And then he's like, $40 million for Canelo. I'm like, dude, first of all, you fight at 185 pounds. Canelo fights at 168 pounds. Yeah. And you're saying that Canelo Alvarez, the pound for pound best fighter on planet Earth, is a chicken if he doesn't take 4. Like, I am so confident that I say Canelo could take a month off, come off the couch, and just dust Vitor Belfort. Like, there's no question in my mind that happens. So I hated and then this whole Vitor thing is like, if Jake Paul doesn't take the fight, that means all his fans have to become my fans. I'm like, my guy. I'm also really confident when I say none of Jake Paul's fans watched this fight
So no one knows what you are saying, and no one knows who Vitor Belfort is. And that's unfortunate because Vitor Belfort is one of the greatest mixed martial arts fighters who has ever lived.
Yeah.
Top 5 middleweights in the history of MMA. One of the greatest fighters, like
a pioneer,
like the definition of a pioneer. Like really the first guy in the UFC that had black belt level jiu-jitsu with elite level striking. So when I say all this, that's not a knock on Vitor. It's just a different world. Vitor, I'm sorry, you're not going to fight the Paul brothers. I'm pretty confident that they didn't even hear you say that. Yeah. So that's just mine. But with that, we're going to move on to the main event.
Where's this Triller, this bag, this briefcase of $35 million? And who was the guy that went like 30 million? No, 35 million. I didn't even know who that guy was.
He's like, so it was 25 million. And then this guy just ran in and goes, "Oh, I have $5 million to just add to this ridiculous bet." Like, come on, man. Like, Logan Paul is fighting on Showtime Boxing, which is like an established name in the boxing world. Like, now that HBO is out of the equation, is anything bigger than Showtime Boxing?
No, they're the premier, but they're the premier broadcaster in boxing.
I know, like Fox and ESPN and all these guys are doing their thing, but Showtime is still the gold standard right now in 2021. So, like, how about you go to Showtime? You got to deal with them. Yeah. Like, Steven Espinoza is an actual TV businessman who's not just going to run out into a ring and throw $30 million out. That's not his game. He's a businessman, and he knows what he's doing. But with that, moving on to less fun fight, I should say, if we want to call it a fight. Vitor Belfort stopped Evander Holyfield. Evander Holyfield, of course, one of the greatest heavyweights who has ever graced the squared circle. In his mid-50s, took this fight obviously on quote-unquote short notice after Oscar De La Hoya had a nasty bout with COVID, and he pulled out. Evander gave an interview with our own Mike Heck. All the comments seemed very concerned with Evander Holyfield slurring some words, kind of meandering through his sentences, didn't really make any sense, gave a lot of non-answers that in his mind were probably not non-answers, but to us didn't seem very coherent. So, Steven, I'll start with you. What were your initial thoughts after watching Vitor stop Evander Holyfield? And I'll ask this another question B. Were you okay with the stoppage?
I'll answer B first. Yes, I was okay with the stoppage. Perfectly okay with it. The referee did the best job that I think he could do under the circumstances. It was quite clear that Evander Holyfield could not take punishment. And it reminded me in many ways of what I thought when Chuck got back into the cage with Tito, in the sense that the mind might have been there, but the body just wasn't. And one of the things that I wanted to mention in the previous thing was we looked at that workout footage, and to me that footage was immediate cause for concern. There was this bizarre, through line that came out that, he's just saving it for fight night. No. That is who he is. That is what's left. The fast twitch, the reflexes, everything, like, it's not there anymore. And it's long gone. And Vitor might be 44 and, he's also fighting in Florida, on a week's notice. But there's just a big difference between those two fighters and the amount of punishment that they've taken over there. I mean, Evander had a long, long boxing career. I think he said he was boxing since he was 8. That is a lot of head trauma. The brain does not get more resilient over years. It gets less resilient. And that's what happens when you take that kind of trauma. It takes less trauma to inflict it. So the problem I have with all of this is that we don't know the punch that's really going to make a difference, like a serious long-term health difference. And that's why I have a problem with this commission licensing it, because we just don't know the answers to this. And the evidence is so overwhelming and obvious just from a smell test point of view, like just looking at him and paying attention to him. It's clear that he should not be licensed. He should not fight again. And the fact that they allowed him to fight is embarrassing.
Well said. Well said. And I will say the Triller broadcast was trying to build up Evander a lot, like basically trying to gloss over a lot of what Steven just said, which is all accurate. And then did you guys see them show Tommy Hearns on the screen, and then they started talking about him coming out of retirement. And then, thank God, who's the main commentator? Ray? I don't remember.
Ray Flores.
Ray Flores immediately was like, "Come on, like, no, we're not doing this, guys." The man is 62. Like, that is my big, like, a lot of people are on the big Triller hype train and everything. I'm not a fan. The man 62, Evander Holyfield never should have stepped inside the squared circle. It was not fun to watch. But Casey, your immediate reaction after watching Evander Holyfield lose to Vitor Belfort.
As far as this fight even being sanctioned, yeah, it was a disgrace, and this is, and not because of Evander's age, but because the proper testing wasn't done. And I'm sure, if Evander, I'm sure that if this fight could have happened in California, but it would take the proper amount of testing. I'm not sure how long it would take. Maybe you guys know, but I know you have to do a lot more testing. Like, even if you're over 40, like, over 40, you have to take lots of twice as many more tests, whatever. But especially at his age, like, there's no way Florida did that. So Evander didn't do the proper testing. There's no way he had a proper training camp, healthy or not healthy. And he's going against freaking Vitor Belfort with Florida's commission's testing, So, yeah, it was kind of it was a bit of a shit show happening, but I was pretty positive. I actually picked Holyfield coming into this because I was like, Holyfield, he cares too much about his legacy. The people around him care about him too much. You're not going to just let this old man, even though he looks in remarkable shape, this is not going to let this old man get out there in front of Vitor Belfort. I thought we were going to see, on our previous show, I thought it was going to be a really bad 8 rounds of boring clinch work, boxing clinch work. You just kind of hold the arms and things like that. Like when the Klitschko's were kind of running amok, very, very just kind of boring heavyweight boxing. That's what I predicted, but unfortunately, we got something much worse, and that was just a clearly shot Evander Holyfield against a very excited Vitor Belfort, and that's what we got, and we saw it. And congratulations to the ref for saving Evander Holyfield from long-term damage. As a fan of violence, yes, I wanted that fight to go longer. As a fan of not people dying, I'm very happy the ref did what he did, because that was, to me, that was very much like when you watch like amateur MMA or very low level pro MMA, the refs don't give you that same leash that you get like in championship fights or anything like that. So that's, if you're wondering why the stoppage, I promise you it was because of the age of Evander Holyfield, not necessarily because he was taking the hardest shots. It was simply his age, and safety first.
The long-term damage is there, though. To what degree after this fight, we don't know. Mm-hmm. But the long-term damage is already there. Evander is not, this is not going to get any better for him.
Yeah. Well, so I don't know how versed you are with Evander Holyfield's career, but one of the greatest heavyweight fights in the history of boxing was his fight against Riddick Bowe. And that was 30 years ago. It was 30 years ago. And he's fighting now. And that fight, I lose brain cells watching that fight. And because it is so violent, and I'm physically exhausted watching that. When he fought George Foreman in 91, everyone thought that was going to be George Foreman's because George Foreman came out of retirement after 10 years. Everyone thought it was going to be George Foreman's last hurrah in boxing. And George Foreman was 42. When he fought Evander Holyfield. How old is Evander Holyfield right now? 56?
58. Closer to 59, yeah.
What are we doing?
4 years younger than the guy you were talking about.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
It's
the question. What are we doing? Well, here's what we're doing. We're producing content. People need live sports. Mm-hmm. And there's a market for this. How big the market, I don't know. From our site traffic, I would say that this was an event of moderate interest. It wasn't, it wasn't a Jake Paul fight. It wasn't a Logan Paul fight. But there is a market for this. If Dana and the UFC and other boxing promoters, legit boxing promoters are pursuing the competitive aspect of this, there will always be a market for this other stuff, this celebrity stuff, and even more so now. So it's just a matter of, how big of a market. And I think that Triller ultimately is trying to build up their content library so they can go public, get more people, get more dumb money in, finance more of this, and then turn the company over, sell it, turn it over to the next person. That's what I think it is.
Well, on that real quick on the Triller thing, I had heard a few, like when Triller first launched, that a lot of people were under the assumption, because remember when there was that whole TikTok controversy with like it was made in China, and like there was like a lot of like paranoia about stealing data and everything. Triller thought they could take TikTok's place if TikTok disappeared. But once TikTok disappeared, Triller had nowhere to go. So they kind of just found a new route. So you could very well be right, Steven. Anyway, Casey, I'm sorry to interrupt. What were you saying?
No problem. This is a big what if. But how different are we looking at tonight if Oscar doesn't get COVID? If this fight is right down the street at the Forum, at the Staples Center in Los Angeles, but that's prize fighting. That's how, if you run a promotion, you have to be prepared for something like this. Do you think Triller made a mistake by not canceling the event or moving the event or delaying the event, which is what I expected? Or was this the right decision to put Evander Holyfield in there, move it across the country to, essentially, if they would have had LA, Oscar De La Hoya, there's a freaking statue of Oscar in front of the Staples Center. There would have been so much media. The buzz would have been so much different. I'm sure the performers would have been different. The celebrities would have been different. The staging would have been different. Everything would have felt different. Even Tito being from Huntington, it just had a different feel.
And Anderson lives in LA, doesn't he?
Anderson lives in here, yeah. So did Triller make a mistake by going with this? I don't know the deep money contracts of did they have to do it. I don't know that. But if they had a choice, do you think they made a mistake doing this event?
I'm going to say that watching it seemed more thrown together. Did you guys feel that way?
Yeah. Well, it didn't feel like a Triller event. It felt like I watched BKFC last night. And it didn't look that much different from BKFC, honestly. They had a little more pyro here, and obviously the performers, but essentially it felt the same. It felt like the same amount of people, the same energy.
I think they spent so much time holding an event on the anniversary of September 11th that they were not going to cancel it.
Yeah, that's...
And then once you get the former president of the United States involved, and Jorge Masvidal doing commentary next to him and everything, and I don't know if... I don't think they viewed this as a boxing event, Triller. I think they just viewed it as this big conglomerate of chaos that they could just get a bunch of eyeballs on the product. And then boxing events happen to be there.
It's such a different way they approach these fights. Triller approaches this fight, say, versus how we saw Showtime just a couple of weeks approach Woodley and Paul. Yeah, Woodley and Paul. It's just I think they tried their best, and I think they did a good job of making this is a legit athletic boxing event. While this, like you said, this isn't a boxing event. It's just
and then I thought
each other kind of.
I thought one of the outside of the actual fighters that lost this today, the biggest loser I think was Teofimo Lopez. They didn't plug him. They barely plugged him. He's fighting on Triller, and he could be the best boxer in the world. He's 24.
Fat Joe and Ja Rule. That's the fight I'm hyped for. I didn't even know that was happening.
I was about to say that. Like Teofimo Lopez.
You're right.
Beats Vasil Lomachenko.
You're right.
Like Casey, we were on the A side, and I presented a bunch of names to Andreas Hale, who's very much more embedded into the boxing world than all of us. Like I'm a big fan of boxing, but like it's his job to cover boxing. And I was like Ryan Garcia, Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko, David Haney, Ryan Garcia. Like these are the futures of boxing. Maybe not Lomachenko, but like everyone else.
I understand.
And he's like, Teofimo Lopez will be the best of all of them. And he's fighting on Triller against George Kambosos, who a lot of people aren't giving him like a chance to win. But those two have done such a good job of building this fight themselves without Triller.
They didn't
I can't. And then like what Casey said, what are they playing? Ja Rule and Fat Joe?
Yeah.
Over Teofimo Lopez? Like, what are we doing?
I watched like 10 minutes of Ja Rule talking to his camera and Fat Joe sitting in his car talking to his camera phone. I was like, I didn't know. I was like, what's going on? Apparently they're fighting Tuesday? I don't know.
Do you know when Teofimo Lopez fights George Kambosos, Casey?
No clue.
October 5th on Triller.
That's a rumor. I think that can't be true.
Well, if it has the vibe of a promotion that's sort of shooting from the hip, it probably because they are. I mean, look, they started this thing not too long ago. They're now in the combat sports world, and there are a lot of challenges to running a show. and running a consistent show
Because,
with consistent talent, getting people interested, keeping your margins in check. I mean, all of these things. That's why so many companies, they get in the business and they suddenly flame out. And they seem to be spending a lot of money. That's what concerns me, if I'm concerned at all about that, because fighters need places to fight, and more specifically, the combat sports industry needs whales, and Triller is a whale. And I want it to stay in business because it obviously gives us more traffic, and it stays in business, and gives a place for people to fight, and stuff.
Competition is good in this game. Yeah,
it is. Yeah, it is. But they are doing this under a tremendous amount of scrutiny. To their credit, I mean, they're basically trying to create something from scratch, right?
Yeah,
like a combat sports platform from scratch. That wasn't their core competency when they first got into it. So I think, as long as they stay in business and don't screw it up too bad, we need to give them a little bit of a pass sometimes, but they still should have never, ever licensed Evander Holyfield.
Yeah.
They should not do that anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people, MMA fans kind of crapped on Triller for the Paul Askren show, which I think most of the fans, MMA fans, watch, and they were like, "Oh, these musical acts, all this stuff, slap boxing." But I didn't really crap on it. I thought it was. I admired the ambition of what Triller was trying to do. I think they kind of went too far and had to kind of come back a little bit. But they kind of, I don't want to say blew it, but things happened. Oscar got one thing happened. Oscar got COVID, and that just kind of imploded the entire show. They rushed it, and it felt rushed, and this is what we got tonight. And it could have been Evander Holyfield could have knocked out Vitor maybe or something. Maybe we have the tone is totally different, but it didn't happen. We saw kind of a worst case scenario almost. The referee saved the worst case scenario, to be honest. Bad night for Teofimo.
According to Vitor, Oscar De La Hoya is the happiest man in the world tonight because he didn't have to fight Vitor Belfort. I'm like, yeah, he's alive. He survived COVID. I would be happy too, my guy.
Yeah. So do we want to see that? Is that something? Yeah. Oscar?
I think that's the fight that they should make.
Me too.
They just slayed. They're like how old's Oscar De La Hoya? 48, 47? He's much more closer. He's not even 58. He's much closer to Vitor. Vitor's age. And I know Casey, I believe you shot it backstage. Was it in LA when he was getting real emotional backstage?
Oh, yeah.
It was real weird, but I got much more interested in the fight after seeing that because of how emotional Oscar got thinking about the fight.
I was like,
so I still want to see that fight because to me, I could look past the quote unquote circus aspect of Vitor Oscar because they're much more closer to age and weight.
Yeah. And I want to see Triller do a proper show. Like what they kind of, I think what their brand is, which is definitely putting a lot more entertainment into the fight night, which is fine. If that's their thing, that's their thing. I know UFC is kind of the anti-fun league, and Triller wants to throw all the fun in there. So I want to see it. I want to see it done in LA. I want to see it done with a real venue with full of fans, and we'll go from there.
I agree with everything Casey just said.
Do we have? Do you guys pick Oscar over Vitor if it happens?
Man, I don't know. I don't know, and not that Oscar's not a better boxer, but we've seen a few UFC fighters that have come back from COVID and they lose and they say, I still feel it. Like Irene Aldana on Fight Island was like, I'm still feeling the effects when she lost to Holly Holm. So I don't know. Pre-COVID, Oscar, I favored Oscar pre-COVID, but after he went, his symptoms were not asymptomatic. Like he was on his, he was in the hospital laying on his back. So I don't know. I have absolutely no idea.
It's the odds are closer now. I was very heavily in the Oscar camp, but now I'm like, I don't know. And Vitor look good. It was hard to tell.
Vitor's always had lightning fast hands. Like even in the UFC, that was kind of his thing.
Especially that early. That early.
Exactly. Could he sting Oscar early? Probably. But I don't know. Because like Steven was saying, like Evander, you watched his open workout. He clearly his his reflexes and his twitch and everything were not there. I don't know about Oscar. We didn't get to see that open workout with him. We've seen him punch pads on his Instagram, but we haven't seen him in an open workout yet.
Yeah. The mystery's still there, so I think there is some intrigue there, and now Triller has footage, they can kind of, sell the Oscar fight with. So who knows? We'll see. Let's see if Jake Paul takes the bet and see if all his YouTube, no, I'm not going there.
Also, David Haye fought on the prelims. That was weird. David Haye is one of the best heavyweights like last 15 years. And he fought on the undercard.
Did he retire? I when they said his name,
he retired 3 years ago.
That's what I thought. I was like, David Haye, wherever I heard that name before.
David Haye is really good.
Yeah, I was like, I just haven't heard his name at all in a while.
David Haye, do you remember when do you know who Derek Chisora is, Casey?
No.
He's a very brash British heavyweight who walked out of a press conference because he realized at the press conference that he was the co-main event. And he goes, I'm not fighting. And he just left. And he goes, it's like, you're selling out this arena because of me. If I don't get paid, I'm leaving. And then he just walked away. David Haye broke a bottle on his face during a press conference. David Haye is about that life. He's also one of the best. He's basically like the Dan Hardy of the boxing world. Like, he was a former boxer that was very, very talented and then transitions over to the media. He is phenomenal. David Haye is phenomenal at his job. That's why I couldn't believe he came out of retirement. And then he called out Tyson Fury because they were supposed to fight 3 times and David Haye pulled out of every single one. So you're not going to get that far. Anyway.
It was fun. It was fun watching David Haye just do his low head movements. I'm like, hey, you can't hit me. This is fun.
I didn't know he was
It's fun
fighting
watching boxers school other people and just use their boxing. That's fun to watch.
Yeah, and he's also I can't believe I didn't know he was fighting until like today. Anyway, that is neither here nor there. Steven, any final thoughts on the quote unquote circus that was Triller Fight Club? Was it Triller Fight Club Legends? Is that what they called it?
Legends 2, I think. Because
Legends 1
Tyson
was Tyson and Jones. Yep, you're right.
Yeah. And my final thought would be Triller hire better security guards that intervene sooner when idiots start screaming stuff.
Ooh, yeah. I don't want to bring that up, but yeah. If you're there in attendance, don't start screaming things during a 10-bell salute for the anniversary of 9/11. Doesn't look great. Does not look great. But then all the comments on Twitter, because I was like still kind of monitoring our Twitter, all of them were like, yeah, well, it's Florida. How far has Florida sunk?
You've been to Florida so many times. So I think you've just kind of been inoculated to Florida. But I'm still shocked by Florida when Florida is itself.
Such is life. Anyway, Casey, any final thoughts on the circus?
They're making circuses look bad. We love the circus. Circuses are fun. I guess I give circus a bad name. So that's all. I just not the best night for Triller. Great night for Anderson Silva. Good night for Vitor. But Triller just they are not the type of promotion that can throw a show like this together. They're not the UFC. UFC. They moved a show from Vegas to LA in a week, and that's just 4 hours away. I don't think the UFC even could go across the country in a week. Yeah. So I think the Triller just got way too ambitious of what they wanted to do, and what the circumstances gave them. So hopefully I want them to stay around. I don't hate Triller. I like different looks. They have their own look. Their shows look different, and that's so important to me. And tonight's show didn't look that way, and I'm assuming that's all because of the big move. So I'll give them a mulligan. So yeah.
Well, they've lasted longer than Affliction, so they got that going for them.
Yeah.
Anyway, anyway, for Jose, that's Steven, that's Casey. Once we wrap here, you can of course go onto our YouTube page, watch the post-fight press conference. I believe Mike Heck got a one-on-one with Anderson Silva. I do not know if he got one with Vitor. I know he was trying, but he said he got one with Anderson Silva, so be on the lookout for that. I'm sure Steve will have some write-ups on the entire night of the circus. Our colleague Sean El-Shadi has a nice little feature coming too. So until next time, this has been Jose, Steven, and Casey. We're out.
You're listening to the Vox Media Podcast Network.